Alrighty. Welcome back to Between the Edits. Today, I am so excited to speak with Sophie Riley. She wears many hats in this book world of ours, but she is super, super talented. I've loved getting to see her content both on Instagram, LinkedIn, Substack. She's doing a number of really cool things that we're going to dive into today. But first, I'd like to just pass it over to you, Sophie, and let you introduce yourself to our listeners.
My name is Sophie. I am an author, a freelance illustrator, and a literary agency assistant on top of working my full-time actual job. And I also run a writing community called NovelBound.
Perfect. Okay. So, that is a great start. So, one of the things that I think that you do really well and that I've seen so far is you do a really good job of building community on these various platforms. So, like I mentioned, you've got, your Instagram, you've got Substack, you've got LinkedIn. Are there any other ones that are kind of big ones for you that you seem to have a lot of traction in?
I'm biggest on TikTok. I have almost
TikTok.
40,000 followers on there. So that's where I do most of my posting. I have a lot of fun with that.
Gotcha. And so then how do you kind of break it down between NovelBound, being a literary agent assistant, doing your freelance illustrations? What does that look like for you, balancing all these different things?
Yeah, it's really difficult. I work every day from 6:30 a.m. until 1 at my actual job. I'm an admin assistant in elementary school. So I do that, but luckily I have afternoons open. So I usually come home and I do some of my lit agency assistant duties. I do try to do like 2 hours a day. I kind of am doing novel bound stuff all day long, just moderating in our Discord server. Um, and then I do a lot of my illustration work while I'm watching TV, just because I just don't have a lot of other, like, I have to double task to make things work. Um, and then I work a lot on Saturdays. I actually enjoy it. I love going to a coffee shop on Saturdays and just really buckling down for like 4 or 5 hours and getting a bunch of stuff done. So it is a lot to keep track of all of it, but um, I try really hard to not
Mhm.
let any deadline slip through the cracks or anything, but it's not easy. So
Well, I mean, absolutely. Like my hat's off to you. On a personal note, as someone who also, pride myself on organization, I always love to ask people if you are the type of person that like keeps a really like strict agenda and all that kind of stuff. Like, you do have a planner. What's your organizational system? This is such a fun question for me.
yeah, I use my notes app on my phone a lot just to keep track of like this is what I have to do today. I have ADHD and so I'm a very type A person, but I struggle to actually be type A just because I struggle to actually get the things done that I need to. So yeah, I do a lot of to-do lists, just keeping track of dates and stuff. It's never extremely organized. I wish I had a better system, but yeah,
It's
the
real.
most
It's real.
most important thing to me is just keeping track of dates. Because I
Hmm.
can be pretty efficient with my work, but I just need to like actually get myself to do it.
Hmm. Absolutely. Okay, so let's take it back a step or two. You also enjoy writing, right? So a lot of us get started in this because we have a love of reading and writing. One usually closely follows the other. So how did all this start for you?
Yeah, I've been writing since I really before I could write, I've been telling stories. I have this old video of me at like age 3 showing my mom this little storybook I made, so it's always been a part of me. Um, but I really started writing in elementary school, and then in high school started taking it more seriously. I wrote my first book in I think I finished it in 8th grade. So I've been writing books since then. Um, it's something that I can't really turn off. I just love to do it. So I've written 9 novels at this point, and a couple children's books. Um, but yeah, it's always just been the answer for me. I've never thought about doing anything else with my life. So
And
yeah.
why should you? You're obviously
Yeah.
super talented,
Thank you.
so it's a gift. You got to share it.
hmm
So then, what came first? Did NovelBound come first, where you noticed that you wanted to help support up and coming authors, or were you interested in the publishing side first? Or was it the illustrations? Kind of walk me through the timeline there.
Yeah. So my number one goal has always been to get to the point where I can just be a writer. Um, but I always was like, well, publishing would be a really cool career on the side of that, whatever, which is kind of funny. But yeah, I started getting interested in working in publishing in college, and started pursuing that, but it's so competitive. I'm sure you're well aware, but it's so hard to get into. Um, and so in the middle of 2023, I reconnected with one of my college friends, Maddie, and we were both in the query trenches with our books and realized, oh, like it's nice to have another person who knows what it's like. I wish we had like a broader community. So in 2024, we launched NovelBound. We just had our 1 year anniversary about a month ago.
Congratulations on your 1 year. That's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, so we had to kind of start from the ground up and built
Uh-huh.
it really incrementally, but it grew a lot quicker than we thought. And I, in that, worked with a lot of writers and realized, wow, I really do love working with writers and helping them chase their dreams, accomplish their goals as much as I like accomplishing my own. So that helped me become even more interested in working in publishing. So publishing was always there, but until I started NovelBound, I don't think it was as deep of an interest
Uh-huh.
because I just really love helping writers put their books out there.
Absolutely. So, for someone who may not know, what exactly is Novel Bound and why might they be interested in it?
Yeah, so NovelBound is a writing community where online, it's for next gen writers. So our main demographic is like 15 to mid 30s. So it is a resource and community platform. We have various resources for writers. We do monthly events with authors and industry professionals. We offer retreats. So we're about to host our second one in Oregon this winter. And then the main thing is the community. So we have this really thriving little bubble on the internet of these people who love to support each other and give feedback to each other and give each other really honest wisdom about things. Yeah, so NovelBound is just it's a community at the end of the day, and it's a really fun place to be, but it's also really a really valuable place to be, if you ask me.
I would tend to agree. I was looking at some of the resources that you guys have on there and everything, and it's looking at that. It's not surprising to me how you ended up coming out of that experience, or and to be fair, you're still in it, but having gone through building Novel Bound and being involved in building it and growing those communities, how much those resources are needed by authors. Even just me and the work that I've done with authors so far, it was surprising to me at first how many times I got asked for recommendations on like who should I go to for this, who should I go to for that. Especially when we talk about the differences between self-publishing versus traditional publishing. So I'm not surprised that you went into Novelbound and came out of it with a deeper interest and maybe
Mhm.
appreciation for publishing. So much so that you actually just recently got done with a very cool publishing course, correct? Or
Yes.
what how do I yeah, yeah, yeah. Tell us about that.
Yeah. Well, I did the Columbia Publishing course, and it was hosted by Oxford University, so I got to live in Oxford for a month, which was amazing. I literally just got back a little over a week ago. Um, and yeah, I really have become passionate about demystifying the industry. I think it's very confusing. You don't know what you don't know until you know it. Um, and I've just realized that, with all the writers I've interacted with, there's so much to learn. And so I really wanted to get a really good grip on the industry, so that I can, one, share that, but two, be able to get my foot in the door to start my career in the industry. So the publishing course it's an intensive course to teach you about all aspects of book publishing, to help you network a bunch. And it just looks really good on your resume. So,
That's true.
um, but yeah, it was an incredible experience. And we got to hear from and work with so many legendary people in the industry and hear about so many different aspects. So it was, yeah, definitely worth it.
And the setting, I'm sure, was also very cool. Like
Yeah.
imagine being, in that area talking about books, like
Oh
um
my gosh, yeah.
actually I have family who they're in the military, but they're stationed over in the UK, and I visited them recently. That was my first international trip, first time over in that area, and it was really cool. I really
It
enjoyed it.
was so beautiful. I'm kind of having withdrawals at the
Yeah.
moment.
Oh my god. Very cool. Okay, so you have learned a lot just in the past year, right? Of getting into
Mhm.
more of this. You had definitely had an interest in it before, sounds like, and you were exploring those spaces. But over the last year, it sounds like you've really learned a lot more. Um, what would you say is something that you didn't expect learning about this publishing process, and that might have changed your perspective on some things?
Yeah, I think I don't know. It's kind of a thing that people idealize a lot, and people kind of lose focus of the fact that it's a business. I think I've learned a lot about what makes a book publishable, um, what publishers are looking for. I queried 3 novels before I got my agent, and uh, my novels in the past were very kind of literary leaning, young adult, and I kind of realized that's not. They were good, but they weren't marketable, and so I realized like publishers have to be able to sell something, otherwise they're not a business, you know. So I think that was kind of a little bit of a shock to learn. I was like, well, why is my amazing, beautiful literary book not getting picked up? Because I don't know if anyone would buy that. That's, you know. So
Mhm.
that was a big thing to learn. And then also just learning that there are so many moving parts within publishing. There's so many different careers and they all work so fluidly with each other. Um, and there has to be so much communication across departments. And it's just really interesting to learn about. It kind of gives you just a deeper perspective of how this works and like what it takes to actually get a book out there.
Yeah. So I'm thinking again of people who might be listening who are interested in this process and maybe don't know what all those steps are, right? Like you were saying earlier, they don't know what they don't know. What's the kind of brief overview? I love those videos. I don't know if you've seen them where they're like, take this concept and explain it at 3 different levels. And like the base level is like a kindergartner, right? So maybe not kindergartner level, but somewhere nice in the middle. What's a like a nice overview of if somebody's interested in going with a traditional publisher, um, what that process looks like?
Yeah. So you have a novel that you have written. You will then need an agent. So a literary agent is kind of a middleman. They represent your book, they represent your career, and they will send your book to different publishers. Publishers will not take unsolicited manuscripts. So you can't just send your book to a publisher. They won't even look at it most of the time.
Is that your artwork in the background? Did you illustrate those?
Yeah. Well, some of
Wow.
it, but it's my little gallery wall.
I love that. That's so cool.
Mhm. So an agent is the one who will then send your book to all these different imprints, these different editors. If your book gets picked up by a publisher, then you will work with an editor at that publisher. They will get your book ready. Um, your book will go through all these different stages of editing. You'll go through all these like marketing plans and everything, and then hopefully get out into the world. Um, but yeah, basically, you write a book, you get an agent, you send it out and hope that it gets picked up.
So, as someone who maybe has heard a lot about self-publishing, right? You've got your book, right? And then you finish that first draft of your manuscript. The traditional path for self-publishing there is, you would find beta readers, right? Or, people to give you feedback. You go back and you do your revisions, and then you might do like an art campaign or something like that. Um, if you want to go the traditional publishing route, at what point do you take that manuscript and give it to a literary agent? You know what I'm saying? Like, do you
Mhm.
do a round of revisions on your own kind of thing? Or like how finalized do you want your manuscript to be before you give it to your literary agent?
You want it to be as polished as it possibly can be. And that that is to say if your book gets picked up by a publisher, you're going to have a lot more work to do on it.
Mhm.
Um, some manuscripts more than others. But my personal process is I will write usually 3 drafts of a book, then send it to beta readers, and then implement some edits from them, read through it again, then I will send it out to publisher or to agents. I have never worked with an editor. I know a lot of people will hire like a freelance editor to
Mhm.
look over their book, give them, you know, big developmental edits before they send it out to agents. I don't necessarily think that you have to do that. I think if you have really good beta readers, they can kind of fill that role for you. But
Mhm.
if it's something that you're willing to invest in, it's never going to hurt you to work with an editor, you know.
Right.
Yeah, so I agents need a book that is complete and is really solid. It's
Mhm.
not going to get picked up if it's, messy writing. If it's your first draft, do not send it. It has to be really solid, so.
Somewhat finalized. Okay.
Mm.
Yeah. So we're talking like at least third round of revisions.
Mhm. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So then how would someone go about finding a literary agent? What are the important things to kind of keep in mind there?
Aside from your book being ready to go,
Absolutely.
yeah, so finding a agent, there's a lot of ways to go about it. I utilize this website called Query Tracker. A lot of agents use this website to manage submissions, so you can submit your book right on there. But I use that to find lists of agents, and then I did a ton of research looking into every single agent that I possibly
Mhm.
could, deciding whether they were a good fit, if they represented my genre, if they were kind of into books like this, what other authors they represented. So it takes a lot of work on the back end
Mhm.
to figure out who you want to query. You can also find a lot of agents on Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it. Um, or Threads has a growing community of book people. So there's other places that you can find them. But I found a lot through that query manager, and then manuscript wishlist as well, which is another website where agents and editors just post what they're looking for. Um, so after you find them, I built a list, like a spreadsheet. I actually offer this as a free resource through NovelBound's website. It's like a query tracking spreadsheet. Um, but it was my personal one, and then I just made it into a resource because I found it so
Love
helpful. But
that.
I just kept track of everybody that I queried, what they were looking for, when they responded to me, when I queried them, all that
Mhm.
information. Um, yeah, it's a lot of work, but
Yeah.
and I've
True.
done it. I've queried 3 times, so I can speak
Yeah,
on
you can
that.
attest. Yeah, you've had more
Mhm.
than one go around. True or false, you have to go through the query process several times for your first like, for any book, really.
Um, like you have to query multiple agents or
Sorry, yes. Better way
yeah.
to phrase that for sure.
Yeah, I actually only know of one person who she queried a bunch of agents right off the bat and then got an offer from one of them before she ever heard from any of the other ones, which is
Mhm,
that, like, never happens, and that agent didn't end up working out. But, yeah, what usually happens is you will send your manuscript and you'll send your query package, so, like, your pitch, and then maybe a synopsis and some sample pages out to all these different agents. If they like it, they will give you a full manuscript request, or a partial, so that means they wanna read more, uh,
mhm.
and hopefully they like that and then they want to represent you. But it usually ends in rejection. But yeah, some people send like upwards of 100. I don't think I've ever sent more than like 30
But a
queries
lot.
out per book. But yeah, you send out pretty widely.
Right, yeah. Some people might not realize just how many times you have to do it, like,
Hmm.
you haven't really tried the querying process unless your number of, attempts is,
Yeah,
like, in the double digits at least.
and it's a balance as well because you don't want to keep sending out and getting
Mhm,
only rejections because that means something's not quite right. Um, so I've heard a statistic you should be getting about a 10% full request rate. So
mhm,
about 10% of the agents should be responding well and being like, "Hey, can I read more of this?" Um, so a lot of people will send out queries in batches. So they'll send out to say 10 agents,
mhm.
kind of see what the feedback is before they wanna then they'll make some minor edits, whatever, and send it out again. Um, so it's up to the author, but
If there is one aspect of what you were talking about is the querying package that you send out, um, if there is one thing that you think would be a good idea to highlight the importance of in that querying package, what would it be?
I mean, your pages are the most important. Like, your story is the most important part, obviously, because that's what you're trying to sell. But your query letter makes a huge difference. Agents read so many query letters, and as an assistant, I've read a lot of query letters as well. And it shows me a lot when somebody has a query letter that is properly formatted, um, that really clearly shows their pitch, that doesn't ramble on. It needs to be really concise and clean and just say, "This is what my story is."
Right.
Um, and it really does make a big difference for me as I'm reading them, because I'm like, "Wow, this person has really put in the research."
Uh-huh.
Um, and that just, that says something about them as a writer. So query letters do matter a lot. Learn how to format them correctly, um, and figure out exactly how you can tell what your story is in the most concise and clear way.
Right. Which, if you think about it, um, might be a bit daunting for some for some writers because a lot of us like to write because we have room to roam.
Mhm.
And so then learning how to pull in the reins a little bit to create a very concise, targeted query letter might be a bit of a struggle for some people who are used to being a lot more creative with their writing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think getting feedback can really help you figure out what's not working and what you need to change as well. So, getting feedback was not something I really did the first time I queried, and now I think I know a lot more about writing query letters than I did back then, but, like, still, it's really helpful to get other people's eyes on it.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to take a quick break from the conversation so I can tell you a little bit about a great product. You may have already heard me discuss this on the podcast, but I have what I call my legacy bookshelf. This is a special bookshelf reserved only for those books which I cherish enough to want to pass on to my children. Knowing this, a close friend of mine gifted me this custom book embosser. And here's how easy it is to use. So you can just squeeze this, and this comes right out. And then to put it back in, just clicks right back into place. And then this is a book. This is one of my favorite books. This book has an inscription to me from my grandma who gifted it to me at Christmas. And right below that is my custom seal. Now I can have a true collection of legacy books that I'll pass down to my kids, all marked with a custom seal. This is a great gift for book lovers. Use the affiliate link in the description or code BETWEEN at checkout. That's spelled BETWEEN. Using this link or that code helps support the podcast and is truly appreciated. Now back to the podcast. As far as being a literary agent assistant, I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. So, how did you get started in that? And what are the unique kind of things that you bring to the table in that role?
It was really interesting, how I ended up in this role. Um, so as I said before, publishing is notoriously hard to get into. There's always gonna be somebody who has more experience than you fighting for the same roles that you are. So what I have found is kind of forging your own path, getting experience wherever you can, trying to build your network and kind of wiggle your way into spaces is sometimes a good way to go at the beginning. So back about a year ago, I was on Twitter, and we had just started NovelBound. We were like a month old, and we were trying to host all these events every month. And so I was trying to like scout people out to do events with us. And I just saw this agent had tweeted something, and so I messaged her and I said, "Hey, would you ever do an event with us?" And we ended up doing the event, and it was great. And I loved how committed she was to demystifying the industry, because that's something I'm really passionate about. And yeah, months pass, and then last March of this year, I emailed her and I was like, "Hey, like, would you ever be open to having an intern?" And so we had a little video call, and she was like, "Well, I'll just make you my assistant." I was like, "Oh, that works." So it was really great. She was like, "Yeah, let's just figure out how this is gonna work best for both of us. What do you want to learn? Um, what do you want to get out of this?" So she's been such a good mentor and has really helped me. Um, yeah, just made space for me in this industry. So I got really, really lucky. But if I had never connected with her, if I had never taken a chance at emailing her, I wouldn't be where I am right now. So, um, yeah, I just kind of asked for it and it happened.
Amazing. Yeah, it sounds like in both sides, right? Right. So the publishing world, but then also the self-publishing world, or we'll say traditional publishing and self-publishing. One thing I've noticed a lot of is that in both spaces, uh, networking and connections makes a really big deal.
Hmm.
Um, what would be some of the suggestions, tips, advice you have for people who are looking to kind of get more invested in those spaces so that they can start building their network?
Yeah, I just kind of have been on LinkedIn for a while and
Mhm.
have been making connections with people. Um, I never want to like just be adding a ton of people for no reason. But I have been able to build up a really broad network of publishing professionals. It's been really cool. But I try to make sure that I am appreciating their value. So like when I connect with someone, I'll be like, "Hey, thank you for connecting. I love what you do here." Like I connected with a literary agent recently, and I really love their agency and all these things that they're doing in their communities and stuff. So I didn't go into it being like, "Hey, can I have a job?" I went into it like, "Hey, I really love what you're doing here. I just wanted to say hi. Thanks for connecting."
Mhm.
So I think being genuine is very important. People can see through it when you're not being genuine. Um, and I mean, there are so many ways to connect with people in the digital age, which is really cool. I think the time that we live in now, there are a lot less barriers than there used to be in this industry. Um, so there's so many ways to connect with people, whether it's through like going to a conference or going to a virtual conference or doing a publishing course like I did, or just connecting with people on LinkedIn or Twitter. Um, yeah, and just kind of making those really small connections and then seeing which ones you can build up.
Right. Another tip that I love that has paid off a lot for me is so I don't use social media a lot for my personal life. I've just never really loved it. But doing this, definitely have had to get more comfortable with utilizing social media. So, one of the things that I actually had to remind myself of, believe it or not, is that it means a lot to me when people like and comment and share and interact with my posts, right? I have to remember to do that too.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
yeah, so sometimes it's, you making the first move, being supportive of somebody else's post, doing a comment, like, just seeing how much it impacts the algorithm, for me personally, reminded me, I was like, "Oh, yeah, I do genuinely want this person to succeed." One easy way I can do that is just by liking, commenting, and sharing, and then
Hmm.
you've got somebody who feels like they're taking, partnership and what you guys are trying to build
Hmm.
alongside of each other.
Yeah, you have to be able to show them that you value what they're doing, and then they'll remember that, and then they'll value what you're doing as well. So it's
Right.
very much give and take.
Absolutely. So, we'll go back to what do you exactly do as a literary agent assistant? What are your typical job duties look like with that?
Yeah, I recently expanded my duties. Once I got back from the Columbia Publishing course, I talked to Jessica, that's the agent I work with, and I was like, "Hey, so I think I'm really, really interested in agenting even more than I was before." And she's like, "I was hoping you would say that. Here's my plan." And so she gave me some more things that I do. So I do a lot now. Um, the main things I do week by week are editor research. So I will look at her clients' projects and identify editors to send them to. I also help track down, like, I track deals on Publishers Marketplace, which books have been selling to which editors, and help her draft congratulations emails to those editors just to build connections with them. Um, because you want to have a good connection as an agent, you want to have connections with editors that you can send your clients' books to, just so they kind of know who you are. So I do that, and then I screen queries for her. So I'll look through her query inbox because there are over 500 at any given time unread queries. And so I will be like, "Hey, you might like this one," and I send it to her. She also reads all the queries, but it just kind of helps her separate which one she might want to look at a little more closely. And then more recently, I've started reading full manuscripts and doing readers' reports. So basically, I read through the manuscript, give a report on it. Like, this is what it was about. These are the merits. These are things that maybe would need some work if you pick them up as a client. Um, yeah, so I just recently have started doing that. in the last week. So
Gotcha. All
that's the
still
main
very
stuff
new.
I do. Yeah. And then just some random other stuff as she needs it.
Yeah, it sounds like you have a great mentor because I think she, like you said, she kind of knew with you going into this course, you were going to come out of it probably pretty excited. And so, um, one of the things that listening to you share kind of those duties that you're picking up and working on, maybe some of them are a little too new still to tell, but I'm sure that you're familiar with them anyway, as with the work that you've been doing up to this point. How has learning more about publishing, the things that you look for in manuscripts, maybe starting to put together some of those read reports, how has that translated into your own writing?
Yeah. Like I was saying earlier, marketability is a huge thing. And I it's kind of been a hard pill to swallow that maybe some of these books that I've been writing are not gonna sell, just with the current market. And they might need to be books that I publish later on in my career. And right now, I might need to focus on books that are, more likely to get my debut book deal. Um, so I, as I've been writing this year, I've been really trying to focus on concepts that I feel like are a little more marketable. So I'm leaning more speculative, leaning a little bit more into tropes. But I do want to say you should never necessarily write to the market because the market's going to shift. I think you should be writing things that can, be interesting for a long time because
Mhm,
realistically, your book's not going to get best case scenario. If I got a book deal tomorrow, my book's not going to come out for 2 more years. So I don't want to write something that's really trendy right now just for the sake of writing something trendy.
mhm.
But I am trying to lean into things that I know probably will sell. So last year I wrote 4.5 new books in 1 year, which was
My goodness.
crazy. I don't know what came over me.
With everything else you do?
I don't know what came over me last year. Well, I worked a front desk job where I didn't have a lot to do. I think that was part of it.
That does help.
But this year I have found that I'm really burnt out. And so I've been trying to write like 3 different book ideas, and then edit this other book all year. And I've just been really struggling to get any of them done.
Mhm.
But I think, I've been trying to focus my efforts on what baby steps can I take,
Yeah.
because I know publishing takes so much time. That's another thing that you will learn as you work in the industry. It takes a lot of time. And so you feel like you need to rush what you're working on, but
Mhm.
you don't. Like you need to take however much time it's going to take. Which might be years or it might be a couple months. But I think there's a lot of pressure to like, oh, get your book out, get it done, get it published. But I think that can kind of stall your creative process. I feel like I've felt that a little bit this year as I've been trying to push out these really marketable concepts, whatever, and they just aren't coming to me because I'm trying to force it. So you
Right.
can't force it.
What would you say are if someone is trying to decide between going the self-publishing route and the traditional publishing route, what would you say are some of the things that they should be aware of and take into consideration? Another way to phrase that question might be, who would be a good candidate for traditional publishing, and who do you think would be a good candidate from an author perspective as somebody who would want to prioritize maybe self-publishing?
NovelBound did an event on this last year with a friend of mine who has been very successful in both traditional and indie publishing, or self-publishing. I know we colloquially call it indie
Right.
publishing, but she's been very successful in both realms. And she was talking about how it depends on the project for her whether she's going to pursue traditional or self-publishing.
Interesting.
Just because with self-publishing you get a lot more creative control, but everything falls in your hands. So you have to be willing to invest in yourself. You have to be willing to market your book. Um, you have to be willing to pay an editor to edit your book because you're not going to be working with an in-house traditional editor. So it takes a lot of work either way. With traditional, you are going to have a lot of rejection, more than you would have with self-publishing, but you're going to have the benefit of people taking care of your marketing to an extent. You're going to get paid in advance when you sell your book, like there's just different things. You're going to get to work with an editor. You're going to have a whole team working on your book. Um, and there's kind of like prestige around traditional publishing,
Sure, yeah.
but you don't have as quite as much control. So it really just depends on what you're good at. Like if you're really confident that you can market your own book and you can do it all on your own, then do it all on your own. It's going to be great. But if you if you feel like you want to go the traditional route, you also have to just be really willing to face rejection and kind of grow thick skin.
Right. For someone who may not know exactly what creative control they might be having to put into the traditional publisher's hands, which I think is one of the reasons why, if you want to go traditional publisher route, it's important to find, like you're talking about, a good literary agent who knows what you're going for with your book marketing and all that kind of stuff, and is going to be able to find and connect all the pieces that kind of are going to align with what you want for the book, right? So there's that
Hmm.
aspect as well. But um, when you work with a traditional publisher, what are some of the creative aspects that you're referencing here that somebody should be prepared to have to kind of let the publisher take the lead on?
Yeah, you're just gonna have to remember that other people are going to be working on your book. So an editor is going to have a lot of edits that they're going to be suggesting, and you don't necessarily have to take them. One
Hmm.
thing I learned through my course from hearing from all these different editors was like, some authors are kind of difficult to work with and they don't want to hear any of the things you have to say and you just have to let it go. I think like authors are allowed to say no to edits. But you do have to trust that an editor probably knows best most of the time. Another thing is your cover. You don't get to necessarily have as much say in your cover.
Hmm.
You do get a little bit, but um, yeah, and just things like that. Like you can't control every aspect of how they're gonna market your book, how the sales team is gonna position your book to sell it. Like it's not in your hands. And there is some good in that. Like you don't have to worry about it as much, but
I was
you
going to
don't you
say.
don't get to have your fingers in every little aspect.
Right. Yeah. And so some people might be listening to this and they're like, that's my dream. I don't want to have to worry about those things. I made the book. Let's have somebody else market it,
Hmm.
Which, the cover art, the blurb, all of those things are part of the marketing of the book for sure. Um, so some people might be listening to that and they said, that's my dream. That's exactly what I want. I'm a writer. I'm not a marketer. And then
Hmm.
some people are going to hear that and they're going to say, no, I really want to say and how my book makes its first impression on people. And so they're the type of people it sounds like might be better to pursue some self-publishing. I know there are some hybrid publishers where you do a little bit of both, excuse me. And so some of those might be an interesting option. Do you have any experience with the kind of the hybrid publishers and that process?
I personally don't. I have a friend in NovelBound. She is an editor at a hybrid publisher and has had a great experience doing that. So I mean, you kind of get a more control than you would at a fully traditional publisher, but
Mhm.
you still get to work with a team a bit.
Right.
Um, with hybrid, you just have to be very careful that you're not it's not a vanity publisher. So
Correct.
vanity presses will take a lot of money from an author, have all these promises, and then they're kind of a scam. So you just have to
Mhm.
do your diligent research to make sure that the hybrid publisher that you're looking into is legitimate. And that goes for anything. Any agent that you get a call from or anything, like you need to make sure that they are checking all these boxes, that there's no insane Reddit articles about that. Like you have to make sure that they are also safe and going to take care of your work. And that just goes for all aspects of publishing.
Absolutely. Well said. So we'll wrap up here with the final two questions. You have been a wealth of great information and advice. So it's amazing. All of that advice you either learned through doing, like an actual structured course, through working as a literary agent assistant, excuse me, either your own experiences. Um, how has all of that experience in this realm of writing and publishing um, maybe changed your perspective or taught you lessons that have impacted your personal life?
Yeah. I think it's just taught me that community is extremely important. I don't think I would be anywhere near where I am right now if I didn't have a community as like my backbone. Um, Even when I am facing terrible rejection or like horrible circumstances, like I left my literary agent last summer and it was a really hard situation, but I had my community to be like, keep going, you know? Um, and it's just taught me that this is a really difficult industry, whether you are trying to work in publishing, whether you are trying to publish your book or both, like I am. It's so important to have people who have your back, and it's so important to have other people's backs too. Um, and I think that's just something that translates into all areas of life. Like community is just so vital. Um, it's good for your mental health. It's good for giving you opportunities. And it's good for helping you grow as a person.
Absolutely. Last question. This is perhaps the most difficult question. I almost considered not ending each of my podcast episodes this way because of how difficult it might be. But um, for this season, we're going to do an end of season book recommendations list. So I'm asking each of the guests to provide 2 to 3 book recommendations. And that's where the hard part is because we all love books and it's so hard to pick just a few. But if you had to pick, which ones would you like to recommend to our listeners?
Mm, okay. I One of the books that I love is called Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng. That book is about a family who is grieving the loss of their oldest daughter, but it gets really deep into the perspectives of everyone in the family, and it's just really well written. It's so good. Um, I also love Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. She's one of my favorite authors ever. She's just brilliant the way that she writes characters and people, and it's kind of a grittier, like darker book, but it's so good. And actually, the director of my publishing course is the one who published her books, and I had such a fangirl moment when I found that out. It's
Oh, I bet.
crazy. Um, so yeah, Everything I Never Told You, Sharp Objects, and then I think a lot of people have read this one, but I would say The Hunger Games. I think everyone should read The
Yes.
Hunger Games. I love The Hunger Games.
Were you excited with I'm gonna be a terrible book person here, but there was a book that was released in that series recent, like a Songbird something or other. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on.
Yeah, there was Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and
Yes.
then Sunrise on the Reaping. It's the
Yep.
most recent one. So
Have you
yeah,
gotten into those yet?
I love the original ones more.
Uh-huh.
Um, Especially the most recent, like the Sunrise on the Reaping almost feels like fan fiction of the Hunger Games a little bit. It's kind of weird. But yeah, they're both really good. Suzanne
Awesome.
Collins is just very talented. So
Yeah, I remember Hunger Games was one of the books series that I read as a teenager as I was getting back into reading. That I really enjoyed and kind of exposed me to a whole new world of books that I didn't know existed. So there's the Hunger Games, there was Maze Runner, there was Mortal Instruments series. Like a lot of those I kind of read around the
hmm
same time, and like yeah, they're really good. So um, that's amazing. I love that recommendation. Well, Sophie, it's been so wonderful. Like I said, you were just a wealth of information. I learned a lot just from speaking with you. And so I hope that everyone listening kind of learned some stuff too. I appreciate you letting me ask some more personal questions as well and get to know you well. So I'd love to send people your way. I know that you're on, like we mentioned before, a number of platforms, but where would you like people to go to kind of reach out and connect with you?
Yeah, I am on LinkedIn. I am on Substack. I am on TikTok, and I am on Instagram. So my handle is purely.sophia on most platforms, so you can find me. And if you can't find me, just search that on one of the platforms and
Yeah, she'll come
you'll
up.
probably find the other. I don't know. You'll
Yeah.
find me somehow. But also you should check out NovelBound. It's such a great community. And I say that as somebody who, as much as I am the one running it, I am also a part of it. And I love the friends that I've made and the people that are a part of it. And it's just such an amazing place to be. So if you're a writer who's looking for community, you should check that out as well.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll have all this stuff in the description, and as well we'll make sure it's on screen for our YouTube edition, which will show video. So definitely, guys, go and use those resources. Use her query tracker like she was talking about. They're all out there for you to kind of help make this process easier for us all. So again, thank you so much, Sophie,
Yeah, thank
and we'll see you
you.
guys next time.